Hi everyone. So I thought that I would just share with you some of the expectations for the Coastal Environments Field Report. I've had a few students ask me a few questions about this report and just wanting to, and they've wanted me to summarise this. So I thought I would do a video, post it to everyone. So in case some of you have got the same questions, I can clear those questions up for you guys. All right, so the task. The task is to create a field report focusing on the effects of developments along the Adelaide metropolitan coastline. We're mainly going to be looking at Glenelg. However, obviously on the excursion we did visit Seacliff, Brighton and West Beach. All the Year 10 classes are going to the beaches and going to the field trips, so it's important that you incorporate photos, measurements and observations from your field trip in this report. So to make this a little bit easier for you, I have created a table with what needs to be put on each page. So page one is like a title page, okay? So you want to make it a little bit eye-catching with a picture. The picture that you've taken would be really appropriate. So something that suits the topic. Page two is a contents page. That's where you go through and explain what the reader will find on each page. So that's as simple as going through this and saying, right, on page one, because obviously you're not going to say page one, front page, page two, contents page. You'll probably end up saying page one is your location map, page two is your introduction, page three, wind and wave movement along Adelaide's metropolitan coastline, page four, important coastal processes and features, and so on. So it's just really copying what is already there. Okay, so page three, a location map. So pretty much we did this in class, and most of you should have a map showing how far the Adelaide metropolitan coastline extends. So where does it begin and where does it end? And just a few sentences. So obviously we want to see a visual image and then just a couple of sentences about where it starts, where it ends, what state you find this in and what country you might find this coastline in. Your introduction. So basically what I'm looking for is that you answer the questions. So the history of the Adelaide coastline before European settlement. So you pretty much want to look at what was the coastline like when basically Aboriginal people were, living on the land, and before, like Captain Cook came in, before settlement occurred. So we're basically looking for you to make an answer that is something about the fact that it was untouched. You could go a little bit further and you could actually have a look at how the Aboriginal and Indigenous people managed the coastlines. What you'll find is that they were very respectful. They have a lot of spirituality connected to coastlines, to water, and so they really did care for it, as opposed to a lot of Europeans who, and people today who are using it for their own greedy purposes. Why are the coasts important to Australians? So you can just answer that yourself, whatever you think the answer is. Why are coasts important to you? What is coastal erosion? So you should have that written in your book somewhere. And why is it important to the management of the coastline? So obviously if the coastline is eroding, so that means moving back, receding, it's basically part of the coastline is naturally wearing away. So if we've got buildings that are built right on the coastline and we've got different developments along the coastline, we obviously need to be careful about how we are managing the rest of the coastline so that the beaches are still going to be there for future generations. It's all about, this unit is basically focused on sustainability. So if we don't care for our coastlines now, basically think about your children and what are they going to end up with. Also, you want to think about all of the money that that the government puts in to sand dredging. So taking sand from one location and putting it into, so like actually moving it to the Glenelg beach, that's costing taxpayers lots of money. would you prefer to have your tax-paying money spent on maybe hospitals or healthcare or something else? So we need to protect our coastline so that we're not just wasting our money transporting sand from one location to another. Then you just need to try and find a photo from about 100 years ago. But if you can't find one from 100 years ago, then one from just, 30 years ago would be fine. We just want to make a comparison. And what are the main human impacts along this coastline? So, that should be pretty obvious because we have spoken about it. So there are all the different types of developments, surf lifesaving clubs, boat ramps, different restaurants, etc., etc. Then you've got your table on page 5, your wind and wave movement along Adelaide's metropolitan coast. So if that's the table that we've been filling in. Now, I know I've said that you need to collect data for 3 weeks. Look, as long as you can collect data for, at least I'd say 14 days, then that is absolutely fine. I know that it's really hard to collect that data when we're doing lots of different things in class. So look, at least as long as you've got some data for 2 weeks, basically the point of collecting that data is to show that you can interpret data and then recreate it in a written format and in a table format. Page 6, you're looking at important coastal processes. So longshore drift, we've done a bit about that. All the information you should be in your book. Go back to sector, watch the videos, and then Google it if you're still not sure. And then you could copy and paste a diagram from the internet into that section and then just write a little bit about it. Then what you need to do is put your findings and your experiment measurements and data, you need to put that into that section. So basically that's as simple as copying and pasting that information. I will direct message each of you your group's data. So you can copy and paste your data and put it in there. And then what we want you to do is look at your data and say, well, if the tennis ball started in a certain spot and moved, say, 40 meters to the right, what does that tell us about sand movement and how fast the sand is being moved down the beach? Also, what does it tell us about the direction of the sand movement? So does it mean that the sand starts in the south and will then be moved to the north based on where your tennis ball moved? So basically you can look at your tennis ball as though it's a piece of sand. Okay, it's just a cool little experiment that explains that concept. So tell us about sand dunes. Just think back to that video that we watched. Again, if you weren't there for the lesson, it is on sector. The video where it said there are 2 ways you can make a sand dune, one naturally and one man-made way. Seagrass, why is it important to the coastline? Again, I've put something on sector, but you can just look that up. Page 7, major developments along the metropolitan coastline. So we're just looking for different things that exist, so different restaurants, different hotels, different accommodation, boat ramps, surf life-saving clubs, big popular jetties. Page 8, and also we do want you to focus on the Glenelg area because that is the latest development that really does affect the natural coastal processes and really has become really problematic. So the building of the marina has obviously been hugely problematic. Another one you could say is in the Glenelg area, that new pop-up bar that they placed right on the beach. And another one could be, so you've obviously got the marina, but then you've also got the the actual restaurants that are part of the pier area, and they sit right next to the the actual marina. So you've got the marina where the boats go, and then you've got all of the shops and restaurants. So you can say that the shops and restaurants are 1, your marina is number 2, and number 3 could be the pop-up bar that is actually on the Glenelg beach. So just looking at different developments. Positives and negatives of the Glenelg marina. So I want you to have a think about this. So do some research into the Glenelg marina. What do we find there? We obviously find people docking their boats there. We also find that the marina is full of shops, hotels. You can get your hair done there. You can go out to a restaurant. You can stay there overnight. So why do you think this big thing was built? What are the positives? Obviously that, people are going to make a lot of money, but come up with some of your own. The negatives are going to be the effect on the environment and the effect on natural processes. climate change and rising sea levels. So with this, I've actually got a little video that I'm going to send you. This is the video. So if you watch this video, that'll help you to get your head around that. And then what we're looking at on page 10 are the current strategies for managing Adelaide's beaches. So you can simply just Google these terms to get a bit of a general understanding. But what is kind of cool is if you look at this, which I will send everyone. This is what the this document here, sorry, I'll just move it so you can actually see it properly. Oops, where's it gone? Well, it was here and now it's gone. All right, let me just go in here and I'll find it for you. Where is it? Okay. So this document here basically goes through the current strategies that are being used to manage the problems on the Glenelg and Adelaide coastline. So first of all, it starts with all the things that are affecting the Adelaide coastline, and then it looks at coastal protection methods. Now, these are the methods that are currently being used, and these are the ones that I want you to talk about. So beach replenishment, sand trapping, sand bypassing, seawall protection, and dune management. So we've talked about the reason that seawalls are built, how dunes are recreated, how sand is trapped, and also how beach replenishment. So what that means is how sand is moved from one section of a beach to another section. So if you use this document and read up on these sections, you'll be able to answer those topics and questions quite easily. And then the report goes into heaps more detail. I mean, if you're really interested, you can have a quick look at it. But they're the ones that I just, really do want you to get your head around. Obviously, when we're looking at all this stuff, we're always thinking about the economic cost, the effect on society, and the effect on the environment. Next thing is just, give your opinion. If we don't do anything about our coastlines, do you think that's going to be okay? How could public awareness be improved? And what do you think is the likely future of our coastline? So say in 50 years, maybe you could Google this, how much will the sea levels rise, and are we actually going to lose any buildings? Are we going to be looking at having to relocate people who are living along the coastline? Obviously, when we looked at the documentary that really good actor, I've just had a mental blank, that I just had a total mental blank. Well, the documentary we watched in class where they interviewed Barack Obama, and they had a look at the different impacts on that country that was situated, I think it was just off of the American coastline. So I think it was a South American island, and the effects of the rising sea levels on the island, and the fact that those people were then going to have to relocate somewhere else, and the effect on other countries if that has to happen. So lots of cool stuff. Don't forget to put in lots of photos. Is there a word count? Look, if you are answering each question and explaining and exploring it in detail, look, and I would expect that each page has a fair amount of writing with some photos. There isn't really a word limit. It's just to answer these questions. And if you'd like some feedback, give me a draft. I'll have a quick look at it, and you can hand it in that way, and then I can email you back with any ways that you can improve it. But yeah, pretty much if you can get this finished by the end of this week. So obviously my last lesson with you is Thursday, and we'll see you on, and then I'll be away week 11. So try and get it done by the end of this week. All right, thanks guys.